Number 11, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Part 3, Chapter 26. Melody gazed up at the large home as her father turned into the drive and parked in front of one of the three double garage doors. The house was a beige-colored brick. The front door area was more like a patio than a porch. It had a giant archway over the top and a large bench with colorful cushions surrounded by two giant planters filled with flowers. Wow, Phil said as he and Brother Lyle got out of the car. It's some place, isn't it? David Keith remarked. It's really pretty, Carol said softly. Melody didn't say anything. She didn't know what to say, what to think. She knew Mr. Adams was a big lawyer attorney guy who was like second in command at a large law firm. She hadn't really thought much about their wealth status because Logan was so down to earth and didn't seem to think much about it either. She didn't care about money or wealth, and she had the feeling that Logan didn't either, and that was one of the things that made her really like him. He wasn't caught up in material things. However, it was plain to see that his home, his way of life, was way more affluent than she'd originally thought. Before they could get up to the front room and ring the bell, Logan came out of the house with a big smile. "Hey, Keith family," he said brightly. "We're so glad you could come." "It's our pleasure," David Keith replied. "I'm sure my sweet Carol is happy to not have to cook dinner for a change." Carol smiled and nodded. Logan shook Mr. Keith's hand, and then Mrs. Keith, and then the boys, and finally gently took Melody's hand. He didn't let it go. "Come on in. My family's looking forward to seeing you all again." He led them inside through the double front doors that matched the arch and were at least 8 feet high, and Melody couldn't help but draw a quick breath because the inside of the home was spectacular. The entrance foyer was large and white, with marble floors. To her right was a huge piece of furniture. She wasn't sure what it was called, a secretary or a dresser or a console table maybe. It was large and obviously an antique, and above it was one of the most beautiful paintings of the beach and the ocean that she'd ever seen. It was more like a photograph. The detail was so great. She stood staring at it for a minute. Logan smiled. "You like the painting?" "It's totally amazing. My Aunt Breeze is an artist. She loves nature." "Oh, she's good," Melody said quietly. "I think some of her paintings are in your grandparents' home." "They are." She looked to her left to see another large archway, and underneath, a giant curved staircase that disappeared as it turned toward the upstairs. Before Logan could bring the family into the main living area, his mother and father appeared in the foyer. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Keith," Mark said as he extended his hand. "It's nice to see you again, Mr. Adams," David Keith greeted. "Please call me Mark." "Thanks, Mark, I will. And please call me David and my wife, Carol." Mark nodded. "And my wife, Bella." Bella smiled and extended her hand. "Welcome to our home." "Thank you," Carol said. "It's absolutely lovely." "Thank you. Come in, come in." She smiled at the boys. "You'll be happy to know that there are lots of appetizers if you're anything like Logan and JoJo." Philip and Lyle smiled. They were all led back to the rear of the home, past the marble entryway floors to hardwood floors, past a large living room area on the left with two huge sofas and a baby grand piano, and finally to a huge open kitchen, dining, and den area. This was where the living obviously took place. Joey Adams and his wife Breeze rose as the group approached. "You remember my brother, Joey Adams," Mark said. Joey shook everyone's hand. "Of course we remember the Keno Challenge champion," Phil said, a little in awe. Joey smiled. "Well, not anymore." Everyone stated their names, and finally Joey added, "And this is my wife, Breeze." "It's Aunt Breeze's painting you were admiring in the foyer," Logan put in quickly. "Oh my, Mrs. Adams," Melody said. "That painting is amazing." Breeze giggled. "Oh, that old thing?" "She's teasing," Bella said. "She loves that painting, and so do we." "Okay, let's see if I can get everyone's name," Bree said. "You are Carol and David and Phil and Lyle," she said as she pointed at each one. "And of course I know Melody. I don't know how we could get by without her. She's a gem." "Thank you, Mrs. Adams," Melody said, her face a little pink. She turned to the little ones who were being very polite as they stood beside their mother. Melody knelt down. Hey, Sophia. How are you doing today? Hi, Melody. I'm good. I'm glad you're here. Me too, Melody said, offering a quick smile at Logan. She then poked her finger at Kelston's tummy. Where's my hug? Kelston grinned and threw her arms around Melody, and not to be outdone, her cousin Emily did the same. Melody then took Ledger's fat little hand and gave it a kiss. Well, come in and make yourselves comfortable, Bella said. Help yourselves to all the appetizers you want. Dinner is almost ready. So where's Jojo? Phil asked. Logan smiled. He'll be here soon. He got called into a football meeting. Logan grabbed a small plate and picked up some pigs and blankets, some toothpicks loaded with lunch meats and cheese and pickles, and a small quiche cup and some tortilla chips with a blob of guacamole. He handed it to Melody and then got another plate for himself and doubled the servings. Melody giggled. I don't know how you eat so much. He laughed. I expend a lot of energy. He looked around at the other guests. Please, guys, don't be shy. Have at it. Phil and Lyle immediately grabbed plates and started loading them down. Carol sat and spoke with Breeze about the painting. David Keith nodded at Mark. It was really very kind of you to invite our whole family to dinner. Mark smiled. Oh, the pleasure is ours for sure. We're happy to get to know the family of such a wonderful young lady as your daughter. Thank you, David said. And you must be very proud of your sons, a Heisman candidate and a young man whose musical skills are taking the world by storm. Well, let's not jump the gun. So far, he's a social media phenom. Let's see what happens when his first album comes out. So has he actually signed a record deal? Mark nodded. He signed on with Nash Records. He had other offers, but we trust Nash because Toby Nash is a friend of the family. We'll see if his social media status commutes to someone actually paying to hear him sing. We'll see if Logan's social media status commutes to someone actually paying to hear him sing. Is he already working on the album? He's working on writing the music for the album. He'll hit the recording studio after Christmas. So he'll have to go to Nashville? No, there are several recording studios he can use, and one of them is here in LA. While the men chatted, Carol and Breeze headed into the kitchen. Please let me help, Carol said. Sure, Bella agreed. I'm almost done, but you can grab plates and set them on the island. Breeze, you can do the silverware. I'm just setting everything out buffet style, and they can all serve themselves. Perfect, Carol agreed and started to work. 5 minutes later, Jojo came in through the kitchen door. Hey, Jojo, Bella said sweetly. Hey, Mom. How'd the meeting go? He sighed. Okay, I guess. Is dinner almost ready? It smells really good. Almost ready. Go greet our guests. Yes, ma'am. He glanced up at Melody's mom. Hello, Mrs. Keith. Nice to see you. You too, Jojo, and Phil and Lyle are patiently waiting to see you. He nodded, quickly kissed his Aunt Breeze on the cheek, and headed over into the den area. Phil and Lyle were on the far end, having a conversation with Logan and Melody, so he stopped by the adults first. Hey, Uncle Joey, Dad, Jojo, they replied. Jojo held his hand out to David. Mr. Keith, nice to see you. David smiled. Very nice to see you too, Jojo. Melody said you killed it on the drums yesterday. Jojo chuckled. I fake it, but I have fun. The drum always impresses the girls. The men smiled. Lyle and Phil came over to shake hands with Jojo. It was obvious they wanted to talk football, and Jojo indulged them. They talked about the last season game coming up against number 6 UCLA. It was the most important game of the season. Both USC and UCLA had one loss. If USC wins, they finish the season with only one loss and might possibly make the playoffs. Right now, they're ranked number 5. They will definitely make the playoffs if a number 4 Ohio State loses. That's their only real hope. Because right now, Georgia is number 1 and playing Kentucky. There's no hope there that Georgia would lose against Kentucky. Texas is number 2 and playing Texas Tech, and they're not going to lose. Alabama is number 3 and playing Vandy. They're definitely not losing. Ohio State is playing Wisconsin, and JoJo is really hoping that they mess up. But USC has to win, and it's not going to be a walk in the park, especially since one of the main things they just learned in the meeting is their big-time, highly draftable senior tight end is out with a torn hamstring. Meanwhile, Logan was really wanting to get Melody alone, but she was engaging the children in a story. Apparently, it was the first half of the story she told last Saturday, the part he hadn't heard. He watched her talk, watched the light in her eyes, and had to smile. He was really becoming attached to this girl. He looked closely at her face as she spoke, trying to see the bruise that Taylor told Gabe about, but it wasn't currently visible. The thought of the guy's hands on her, squeezing her cheeks, causing her pain, it made him crazy, and the rage took him over quickly. He suddenly rose. "I'll be right back," he said as he stepped out the back door. Logan went to lean his hands on the outdoor dining table and breathed deep, trying to get control of his anger. He was a mellow kind of person. He was. He did not strike out in anger. He did not. He realized he was trying to convince himself. He was not like his father, his biological father. He couldn't be like his father. Of course, he knew for sure he wouldn't get angry and strike a woman, or kick her, or throw a glass at her, or strangle her, or drown her, or rape her. He slammed his hands down on the table. Logan wouldn't do any of those things, but he'd killed the man who did, and now he needed to get his anger under control. Mark came outside to get him for dinner. "Son?" Logan turned to him. "Dad, tell me that I wasn't wrong when I pulled that trigger. Tell me, please." He looked up, tears in his eyes. Mark went to him immediately. "Logan, you weren't wrong. You were so very right. Because the alternative is your mother would be dead. You saved your mother's life. If you hadn't pulled that trigger, she'd be gone, which means there would be no such person as Emily, the little sister you love and adore. And who knows what would have happened to you or to JoJo and I without you and your mom. You were a strong warrior, Logan, and I thought you knew that." Logan nodded. "I thought so too, but this rage is making me crazy. I feel out of control, like my bio dad." "Of course you do. Some guys hurt someone you care for. I feel the same way. I did feel the same way when that man yelled at your mom in the grocery store and I scared her and made her cry. No, I did feel that same way when that man yelled at your mom in the grocery store and scared her and made her cry. Remember that?" Logan nodded and smiled. "JoJo and I had to tackle you to hold you back." "Right. Do you think I was wrong to want to tear his head off?" Logan shook his head. "No, you were awesome." "Well, that's how you are. You're not like Gordon. You're like me. And I couldn't be prouder of you." Logan drew a deep breath. "Thanks, Dad." "You're welcome. Now come on, they're waiting for us." New scene. Dinner was delicious. Bella prepared roast beef and mashed potatoes with gravy and broccoli and chicken Alfredo and corn medley, salad and yeast rolls. The conversation was entertaining. They learned that David Keith was a middle school science teacher and Carol Keith worked from home as a medical transcriptionist. They were regaled with stories of middle schoolers gone crazy, which led to stories about Lyle and Phil, and then stories of JoJo and Logan and their high school antics. As dinner was coming to an end, Mark and Joey mentally prepared for how they would speak to the Keiths about what was happening with Cade, while Logan spoke with Melody about the fact that they knew what happened and why it was so dangerous. "That was so good," Melody said. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Adams, for the delicious dinner." "You are so welcome. Are you ready for some dessert?" Melody laughed. "I couldn't eat another thing right now." "Well, maybe a little bit later." "Melody," Logan said softly, "will you come for a walk with me? I'll show you around the backyard." She smiled at him. "Sure." "I want to come," Emily said. Logan went to her and touched her nose. "Let me talk to Melody alone right now, and maybe we can have a trampoline session before dessert." "I want dessert now," she demanded. "Well, I'd be happy to give you some," Bella answered, "if only you'd eaten some of your broccoli and maybe have 3 more bites of your mashed potatoes." Emily frowned. "But I want some dessert." Mark raised his eyebrows at his daughter. You don't argue with your mother. You do what she says. And if you're not careful, you won't get any dessert. Uh-oh, Em. I'd eat if I were you, Jojo said, and tell Mom you're sorry you argued with her. I didn't argue. And now you're arguing with me, Jojo laughed. Em frowned and looked at her mom. I'm sorry I argued. Logan rose and gathered his plate and utensils, went to Melody and stacked hers on top and took them to the kitchen sink. Melody rose and Logan came back, took her hand, led her out to the white double-folding French doors with a crisp black trim. She looked up at the sun and then looked around. It's nice out here. He looked around, trying to see it with her eyes. The entire backyard was enclosed with a 10-foot-high privacy fence. They were standing on a stamped white patio under a large white solid roof. There was a beautiful built-in grill and 2 gas eyes for cooking and a large countertop and a refrigerator. Also under the patio roof was a large outdoor dining table and chairs with bright cushions of teal and yellow. The concrete of the patio extended out past the roof line and all the way to a fenced-in pool area. The fence was a low, black, wrought iron gate, obviously meant to keep a little 3-year-old out of the pool area. And past the pool to the right of a green, grassy yard was a seating area with nice wooden lounge chairs with bright cushions surrounding a fire pit, and along the privacy fence on that side was a pretty water feature with the water splashing over rocks. To the left, along the edges of the grass, were a few small trees. One, a Palo Verde tree, and the other a California redbud, each with a bench sitting under it. In the middle of the green grass was a large trampoline. Logan turned left and headed toward the side of the yard. He drew a deep breath. Melody, I need to talk to you about something. She frowned. Oh. He smiled and stopped walking. But before I do, I need to do this. Moving close to her, he lifted her face and he kissed her. He meant it only to be a quick kiss, but she did that sigh thing, and he lingered. When he finally pulled away, she sighed again. Thank goodness, she said. Why, thank goodness, he asked. Because I thought you were going to talk to me about last night's kiss being a mistake, and that's not what you wanted our relationship to be. He smiled and shook his head. Well, I'm glad you're calling it a relationship and not just some guy you went on a date with. Well, it feels like a relationship. Good. He nodded toward the tree in the back corner of the yard. Let's go sit over there. They sat down on a bench under the tree. He turned toward her so he could see her face, and he drew a deep breath. Melody, I know what happened to you Friday night at the football game. She frowned, and her hand immediately moved up to touch her bruised cheek, though currently he couldn't see the bruise. Taylor told you? She asked. Well, sort of. Don't be mad at her. She told Gabe. She's really upset that Gabe forced her to tell him, and she thinks you're going to hate her and never trust her again. Melody sighed. Well, that's silly. She looked up at Logan with big eyes. So, how did Gabe know there was something to tell? He saw Jeffy react to you when she checked you out last night. He asked Taylor if she knew why Jeffy would have that reaction, and Taylor, being a little tipsy, couldn't think fast enough to get out of it. So she said she knew, but she couldn't tell him. But later, after the wedding, he told her she had to tell him, and she knew it was for your own good, and she told him, and it's a good thing he did. And it's a good thing she did. Why? It's no big deal. Is that what you think, Melody? He took her hands. Your safety and the safety of those around you is extremely important. Besides the safety of your own family, you are around my family, my grandmother and my little uncles and aunt. And if you're in danger, then they're in danger. She frowned. Well, what did Gabe tell you? Gabe didn't tell me anything. He felt it important enough to call Uncle Joey, and Uncle Joey agreed. He was told that this Cade dude put a bruise on your cheek by squeezing your face to hold you still while he kissed you. Melody sniffed as the tears began to gather in her eyes. Logan squeezed her hands. And he was told that he grabbed you and drug you out of the concession line and forced you over behind a building and shoved you against a wall. And he was told that the guy threatened to punch out your father if he tried to interfere with what Cade wanted to do to you. And he was told that he threatened to come back and he wasn't finished with what he wanted to do. And he was told that I saw Cade drive by when I came to get you for the wedding. You make it sound so bad. It wasn't that bad. I can handle him. Melody, he put his hands on you, and you couldn't stop him. How do you think you can handle him? Well, I threatened to scream, and he let me go, she said, her voice shaking as she thought of the fear she'd felt. Logan sighed. That's because you were in a crowded area. What if the next time he sees you, there isn't anyone around? Well, then I'll make sure I'm not alone. No, I'll make sure you're not alone. Melody, will you tell me why you tried to hide this from me? She wiped at a tear and sighed. I was afraid for you. You don't think I can handle myself? Oh, it's not that. I just don't want you to get into trouble for beating up Cade. He sighed. So you'll put yourself in danger trying to protect me? I really didn't think I was in danger. I don't think that Cade is going to do anything. He's too much a coward. He's all hot air. Logan shook his head. Well, he's a coward, that much is true. He's a coward who doesn't think it's bad for him to beat up on or force a girl. Melody, he's stalking you. He drove past your house several times last night. How do you know that? Uncle Joey was concerned once Gabe called him and immediately ordered a tracker put on Kate's car. The last time he went past was about 2 a.m. Sweetheart, it seems to me like he's lost it. That makes him dangerous. Who knows what he's planning? He could grab you off the street. He could break into your house and hurt you, or your parents, or your brothers. A tear fell over her cheek. Well, then what am I going to do? He pulled her close and hugged her against his chest. Okay, don't cry and don't worry. We've got this. You aren't going to do anything. Uncle Joey is taking measures to protect you and your family. How? Well, already he had an agent watching your house and tailing you to church this morning, all the way until you arrived here. Wow, I had no idea. She frowned. But those agents, aren't they, really expensive? Well, the cost isn't important, and we'll handle that. We take care of our own. Your own? Yes, because you and your family belong to us now. Not in an ownership way, but in a family way. You're part of our family now, and we take care of our own. But what if I stop working for your grandparents, or you and I don't work out? He shook his head. Well, that's a very negative thought. Just so you know, there's no pressure about you and I. If you decide you're not interested in me, fine. Though it would be a hard thing for me. And if you stop working for my grandparents, fine. Either way, you still belong to us. Once you're ours forever. Kind of like what your Uncle Ricky told Desi and Alec. Exactly. She smiled and wiped away the last of her tears. Well, being yours forever sounds really nice. He smiled. Oh, it is. It will be really nice if that's where we're headed. She giggled. I guess we're getting way ahead of ourselves. He nodded. Maybe. So let's go in and see what Uncle Joey has planned for you. Right now, he's talking to your family, telling them about all of this, and waiting for us to come back in to let us know the best way to protect you. She sighed. I hope my dad is not too upset. Well, I'm sure he's not happy about this, he said as he stood and pulled her up. They walked inside to find everyone in the large den. Mark was leaning against the mantel over the fireplace. Jojo was sitting in a chair in the corner. Melody's parents and brothers were sitting on one sofa, and Joey was standing as he spoke. Bella sat on another sofa, and apparently Breeze had taken the young children to the playroom downstairs. Everyone looked up as Logan and Melody came inside and took a seat. Looking at her family, seeing the worry in their eyes made the tears start again. Jojo went into the kitchen and grabbed a paper towel and brought it to her. She wiped at her face, and when she did, the bruise was plain to see. Logan sat next to her and sighed as the bruise became clear. He reached up and touched her cheek. And you really think Kate is capable of this kind of violence? Carol Keith asked. Joey nodded. He fits the M.O. perfectly. And his stalking frequency shows that he has become obsessed with carrying out what he just talked about. What we just talked about. What did you just talk about? Melody asked. Joey sighed. He is capable of raping or beating you, kidnapping you, or even hurting your family members or worse. And what is his stalking frequency? David Keith asked. Joey sighed. He pulled out his phone. Shoot me the numbers and video of Cade Kessler for the past 18 hours. He hung up and waited a minute and pulled up a text. Hand me the remote, he said to Jojo. He turned on the TV and mirrored what was on his phone. He directed everyone's attention to the television. Last night, Gabe called me a little before 10 p.m. I decided to immediately put some surveillance on the Keith home. This first video is just after 11 p.m., taken by an agent. Melody wasn't home yet, but you can plainly see the yellow Mustang drive slowly past the house. They watched the screen. Melody shuddered. Logan took her hand. You okay? She nodded. Yeah, it's just so creepy to see him do this. Joey nodded. Right. Now, here he is again just after midnight. Melody was home at that time. As a matter of fact, he just missed Logan dropping her off by about 15 minutes. And then here, the last time was 2 a.m. That last video and subsequent was not from an agent. We didn't have permission yet to place video on your home, David. So we placed a device, which we will remove today, on the corner of the front fence that runs next to your property. As you can see, it's his car, and notice that last time he slows. He rolls his window down and then takes off. He stopped and pulled up another video on his phone. This is today. He fast-forwarded. Let's count. That's this morning about 10. Again, 30 minutes later. You're not home either of these times. We went to church. We left at 9:30, Melody supplied. Joey nodded. Yes. He backed up the video. Here you are pulling out of your driveway. He fast-forwarded. And here he is again at noon, and again at 1:30, and then at 3, about the time you left to come here. He pulled up another video on his phone. And here he is, driving past this house. 3 times. 4, 4:30, and just a few minutes ago at almost 6. So let me tell you what this says about his state of mind. This guy is what is called a domestic stalker. Most stalkers are or were in a relationship with the victim. The more obsessive they get, the more dangerous they get. They begin to think, if I can't have her, then nobody can. They are very dangerous and unbalanced people, and they are capable of most anything, from assault to rape to murder. Logan rose and ran his hand over his thick brown hair. Uncle Joey, I think this is my fault. I think I brought this on. How so? Well, last Wednesday when I came over to help Melody do yard work, Cade was there. His car was parked at the curb in front of the house, and he was in the front yard, and he had hold of Melody's arm, and I heard her tell him to let go of her, and she tried to pull her arm away, but he had a hard grip on her, and I walked up and removed his hand from her. He wanted to know who I was, and I lied and told him I was her boyfriend. I thought it would discourage him from coming around. Apparently, it was news he was unable to handle. Joey sighed and nodded. Okay, well, this isn't your fault. Your only choices that day were to remove his hand from her or allow him to have his way with her. You made the only right choice. And your lie was very close to the truth, at least from what I can see. He raised his eyebrows with a smile. Melody smiled and looked down. And that one statement should not send someone over the edge unless he was already off balance, Mark added. Okay, David Keith said abruptly. Okay, so what can we do to protect Melody and the rest of my family? Can you arrest him? Joey shook his head. Not yet. Driving past a home is not illegal. However, we will put an agent on Melody at all times. With your permission, we'll put some cameras on your house, front and back, and I think we'll put an agent on Logan. Me? You don't think I can take care of myself? Logan asked. Well, if he tries to pick a fight with you, absolutely. If he draws a gun on you, no. You don't have your CCW yet, and if you did, you can't carry loaded, so it does you no good. Okay, so you put an agent on Melody, David began. For how long? I mean, is this the way she's supposed to live from now on? Until he does something that crosses the line and we can put him away. So until then, we keep Melody safe. Well, I'd like to speak with you personally about this, David said. Joey nodded. The rest of you come on in the kitchen, Bella invited. We have several different desserts to choose from. Joey escorted David back into Mark's office, and the man turned nervously, his mouth in a grim line. David sighed. Mr. Adams, he began. Joey, please call me Joey. He nodded. Well, I'm not quite sure how to say this, but hiring an Ameritech agent to protect my daughter, it's quite expensive, isn't it? It is, and most people can't afford us. But Melody and her family, he said pointedly, are part of us, and we protect our own. In other words, there is no charge, and if there is a charge, it will be paid for by Mark or by my stepfather. Your stepfather? Eric Kino. Since he and my mother are the ones who hired Melody, they will claim her as their responsibility, and they will want to keep her safe, not only because they care about her, as we all do, but because she will be with the children. And if she's in danger, then they're in danger. Please, David, don't worry about the cost. It's taken care of. Well, I guess I can't thank you enough. There's no thanks necessary. We've been so blessed, and now we're able to use what we have to bless you and your family. Well, it's a little humiliating. Oh, please don't feel that way. You and your wife are a hard-working couple who take good care of your family and teach your children well. If God can bless you through us, let him. We are not all the same. Some people have been given 10 talents, others 5, and others 1. How many talents we have doesn't matter. It's what we do with the one we have. I met a homeless man once. He was hungry, and I got him a pizza. And instead of eating some and saving some for later, he ate a piece and gave the rest away to other homeless people. Do I think I was better than him because I had more than him? No, just the opposite. I hope I can be as good as that man. David nodded thoughtfully. And I, too, will try to be as good as that man. But I have to say, your family has blessed a lot of people, and I'm grateful. Joey nodded with a smile. Understood. New scene. November 18th, 10 a.m., Monday morning, UCLA, Los Angeles, California. Agent Wyatt walked Jordan into her English class and set her backpack next to her desk. He smiled and saluted. Have a good time. Oh, you're right, a good time. Wish me luck. You don't need luck, you got this. I'll see you at 11:50. She sighed. Wait. Suddenly I can't remember. Did 3 say we're meeting for lunch at 1? Agent Wyatt frowned. Jordan, he said 12:30. Are you okay? Too much cramming for these finals. We're eating at, she blew out a breath. You're meeting him at Two Sisters Diner, and you're worrying me. Don't be silly. I'm just tired, and I have too much information running around in my brain. I can't wait for this week to be over. Okay, Miss Brooks. Deep breath. You got this. See you in a few hours. Jordan nodded and took a deep breath. Wyatt left the room and stood outside the door. 2 hours later, Agent Wyatt walked slowly beside Jordan as she hobbled along on her crutches, headed to the car. He stopped and smiled at a fellow agent. Brown, he said casually, I see you've got a cush job. Agent Brown grinned and slapped Logan on the back. Right? Logan smiled. I'm going to take that as a compliment. And I'm going to take it as an insult, Jordan said, making the men chuckle. Logan moved forward and hugged Jordan. How you doing, sis? She smiled. I think I just passed my English exam, so there's that. It's Wednesday's calculus exam that I'm having a breakdown over. I heard Jeffy's been tutoring you. Is that not helping? Well, I think it is. She's very intuitive about what I'm not understanding. Logan chuckled. You think? So I'm meeting 3 for lunch. You want to join us? I'm thinking 3's a crowd. Jordan giggled at the double entendre. He would love to see you. He says he doesn't get to see his brothers nearly as much as he used to, and he wants to do something about that, so this will be a nice surprise. Well, if you put it that way, I guess I'll tag along. They walked together and were about to the parking lot when another guy stopped to greet Jordan. Miss Jordan Brooks, how nice to get to see you today, Mason Cole said loudly as he approached. Jordan sighed heavily. Hello, Mason. Mason looked at the other 3 guys standing there. I've met you before in the coffee shop, but you're not the invisible boyfriend, right? Logan didn't smile. No, I'm the brother of the very real boyfriend, Logan Adams. Mason extended his hand. Oh, yeah, that's right, Logan. Sorry, I'm bad with names. That's not a good thing to admit, Logan said with a smile. Why not? Mason asked. Some people are just bad with names. Because people who are bad with names are that way because they subconsciously don't think anyone else is as important as they are. It's a narcissistic behavior. Mason frowned. Well then, I'll definitely remember your name from now on. He smiled at Jordan. So, once again, I see your hired help is here, but no boyfriend. Mason, I'm going to stop speaking to you if you continue to push this narrative that my boyfriend doesn't care about me. He has other things to do. He can't follow me around wherever I go. Like I said before, if I had a girlfriend as beautiful and amazing as you, I'd never let her out of my sight. Well, that isn't a fact that would entice a girl, Mason. Surely you understand that. That I would love her and be with her always and feed her and buy her things and take care of her every need. Like a dog on a leash, Logan qualified. The 2 agents tried hard not to laugh. Mason sneered at Logan and then turned back to Jordan. Just as an example, what is your boyfriend doing this morning that he couldn't be here with you on this important day when you're probably stressed out over exams? Jordan shook her head. There's a whole lot of students here today, and almost none of them have someone around to hold their hand. Why would you think that I need someone to hold mine? Answer my question. What's he doing? He had a meeting with his producers, not that it's any of your business. Oh, that's right. He's like some kind of wannabe movie star. You know what, Mason? When I first met you, I thought you were kind of funny and kind of sweet, that you saw me and wanted to get to know me. Then you started in with this plot to try to undermine my boyfriend, and I thought you were just silly. Then you kept it up, and I thought you were not being very honorable. And then you met him, and I thought you'd get the picture, that there was no way I was going to ditch my boyfriend for you. And then the last time I saw you, I was getting a little pissed. But now that you're showing your true colors, I'm thinking you're nothing more than a pesky fly, not even worth me wasting energy on being mad. Mason stepped closer to Jordan and was met with a strong hand against his chest. Step back was the order issued by Agent Wyatt. Mason did as ordered. Jordan went on. And Mason, I have a fly swatter, so to speak, who is waiting on me to come have lunch with him. You're welcome to join us, but you won't fare well against that fly swatter. You're crazy, Mason mumbled. I'm thinking you're the one that's a little bit deranged. I don't want your attention. I don't care what you think about me or my boyfriend. I think you're irrational and unbalanced, and I truly don't want you to speak to me again. And that's the end of that, Agent Wyatt said. He ushered Jordan forward to the parking lot. Mason stood there watching, his face burning with humiliation. New scene. November 18th, 4:30 p.m., Monday afternoon. Keno Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Logan put his car in park in the front drive and headed up the front steps and into the house. He went straight to the kitchen where he heard voices. Shelley looked up from where she sat at the table with the children. Hey, Logan. He smiled. Hey, Grandma. He kissed her cheek and then looked around the kitchen table. And how are you little munchkins doing today? As usual, Angelina spoke first. We are making art. What was it called, Mommy? Art journals. Oh, art journals, Logan said as he looked around, not seeing the person he wanted to see. Yeah, you have to make a picture of something you did today, Noah said. I see. He looked at Noah's picture. And you ate a cookie today? Yeah, and Mommy says we can have another one after dinner. Logan nodded and looked at the other pictures. Let me see. Nate, you read a book today. And Manny, you also ate a cookie today. And Abe, you brushed your teeth today. And Angel Face, you went for a walk in the sunshine and held Mommy's hand. She smiled. Yes. Well, you guys, these pictures are amazing. What a great day. Shelley smiled up at Logan. She's in the laundry room. He nodded. Thanks, Grandma. He headed straight down the hall to the laundry room. He stood in the doorway, leaned against the frame, and watched her. She had earbuds in her ears, and she was dancing and bouncing and swinging her hips as she folded little shirts and pants. Her head bobbed, and she sang a line to the song she was listening to. Logan thought maybe slightly out of tune. She seemed happy. She seemed to be enjoying herself. She raised one hand in the air and pointed at the ceiling as she nodded her head, and he wondered what song she was listening to. Whatever it was, it had her going. He watched her a few moments more. She nodded her head as she made a stack of pants and set them neatly in a basket, picked up a stack of shirts and spun around. She stopped mid-spin, her eyes wide. Oh, you scared me. He grinned. Sorry. I was enjoying the show. She blushed. Oh, I just bet you were. What are you listening to? She turned off the earbuds, and a Toby Mac song blasted from her phone. Ain't no doubt about it. You are the goodness in my life. Logan nodded. Awesome. He came forward. So it looks like you're having a good day. Are you? Yes. Why? Why? He nodded. She shrugged with a smile. I have my reasons. What about you? Are you having a good day? He nodded. Yes. Why? He chuckled. I'll be more straightforward than you. I'm having a good day because Saturday night I kissed a girl, and then Sunday I did it again. She smiled and sighed. Me too. You kissed a girl? Ha ha, very funny. He moved close, and now I'm about to do it again, if that's okay with you. She looked behind him to make sure no one was around and nodded with a smile. He took her in his arms and kissed her until she swayed. He finally pulled himself away. Wow, it was just as good as I remembered it. He lowered his head and did it again, then pulled away and smiled. You're very good at that, she said softly. He gave a soft laugh. Well, that's good to know. Why? He shrugged. Because I always want to please you. Well then, so far, so good. He grinned. So you had a good day, which means you think you did pretty good on your exam today, Melody asked. I did pretty good, I think. Do you like going to school? Sometimes. It depends what classes I'm taking, but I like learning, especially about music, except when the teachers are trying to force their agendas down my throat. But I'm aware of their narrative, and I can pick up on it pretty quickly. I'm learning to navigate in a world that accepts sin and debauchery as an art form. Logan, the more I get to know you, the more I like you. I mean, you say some pretty awesome stuff. He smiled. You're very good for my ego today. You like how I kiss you. You like the stuff I say. I feel like pounding my chest. She giggled. And now you've messed it all up. He chuckled and leaned forward, unconsciously touched the bruise on her cheek that was only slightly visible today. What time do you get off? As soon as I finish this laundry. Would you like to grab something to eat with me? I would love that, as long as you keep it casual because I'm not dressed. He looked her over. She wore jeans and a button-down shirt with rolled-up sleeves. The shirt was a faded plaid and lightweight and had the first 3 buttons unbuttoned. Underneath, he could see a white tank top and a tiny gold chain with a cross. Very feminine. Her long brown hair was up in a ponytail. If she had on any makeup, he couldn't tell. What are you looking at? She asked. He shook himself out of the trance. Sorry, I was looking at you. You said you weren't dressed, and I was thinking how beautiful you look in just jeans and that casual shirt and your plain white sneakers. So cute. So perfect. She swallowed and looked down at herself. The way he said the simple words in a soft, reverent way made her shiver. So, how much laundry do we need to get done? She smiled. Why, are you going to help me? He grinned. Sure. I need to fold this load and the one that's in the dryer and then take it upstairs and put it in their drawers. Okay. So, do you know which shirts belong to which kid? Well, the ones with butterflies and flowers on them belong to Angelina. Then just peek inside. Miss Shelley has written their names inside the neck of each piece. Got it. He lifted a green and blue striped shirt and folded it. Melody nodded. Good job. You did that perfectly. He grinned. Oh, Jojo and I have helped Mom out with laundry, and she showed us how to fold M's things so that she can see which shirt it is, so she can pick out the clothes she wants. That Emily, what a beautiful little girl she is, Melody said. Those big blue eyes and that long hair with those ringlets. She's adorable. I agree. It's funny. My mom has blue eyes and black hair. My dad has brown eyes and brown hair. You'd think the brown eyes would be dominant, but she's got Mom's eyes. Well, so did you. He frowned. Yeah, but my bio dad, he also had blue eyes. Oh, yeah. Sorry. He put down the shirt he just folded and put his hands on her waist and turned her to look at him. And you, Melody, you have this luscious brown hair and these amazing hazelish greenish eyes and the prettiest smile. He looked at her lips as they smiled. I think you might be the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Get out much? Well, as a matter of fact, I do. And in my family, I'm surrounded by beautiful women. Oh, that is a very sweet thing to say. You remind me of someone, maybe someone I've seen in a movie or something, he said. She thought. Well, I had a friend tell me I looked just like Elizabeth Olsen. He thought. That might be it, only you're prettier and a lot younger. She laughed. Well, thanks for that. And your nose is more turned up, and your lips are prettier, and your hair is longer and shinier. So, in other words, I look nothing like her. And that is the end of chapter 26.